We would not get another terror, we wouldn't get another cipher, we wouldn't get them voices again, boy. Last election was so much fun. Cipher, sorry, it done. These characters, you don't get them characters again in Calypso, boy.
You see, Calypso is art, and the judge of art is the beholder. Yeah? And to judge art can't be a right thing in terms of awarding points and saying who's the winner and who's the loser. Because art is art. Calypso is art. It's like asking Leroy Clark, one of our renowned artists, to go into a competition with other artists to see who wins.
This is the challenge. This is the real challenge, because art is so dynamic, it's so fluid, it's innovative, it doesn't sit still, it doesn't like to live in a box. So it's very difficult to quantify it and classify it sometimes. You know, one has to be very open-minded towards art, because art is, that's the nature of the beast. You know, it doesn't sit still, it's always moving, it's always shifting. Yes, there are trends that some artists will maintain, but not for very long.
Art is always a story. So Calypso is just another expression of art. It should not be judged. It shouldn't be a competition for Calypso. But that is part of the culture that we judge. So we should understand that, you know, this is what it is.
Very interesting comment from Luther, but the thing about human beings, we are naturally competitive. If you have, so long as you have more than two people or two things in the same place that look alike, you automatically establish an environment for competition, for critique and comparison and even contest. So that it's a natural human instinct. And at the end of the day, competition brings out the best in us. Because everyone wants to raise their game, and so you get the finest product at the end of the day. How you judge that's where the rubber meets the road. How you approach the judging, but you cannot eliminate judging. It's a natural instinct to human beings.
So the whole idea of presentation over the years, I think, has taken on a whole new meaning in and of itself, where I could present my number all by myself. But I think it's now an assumption that a presentation entails having a skit and a video intro and dancing girls and fireworks and a dancing bear if need be thrown in. And I find that, you know, many times, you know, you lose sight of what is in the offing. So I always encourage anybody that approaches me for any kind of guidance towards performance or presentation for a big competition, let's start from the basics. What is the song? What's the song seeking to communicate? What's the story? Is there a story in there? Is there a feeling or a vibe or a mood or something you want to evoke? Let's focus on that and then build from that. And always put you, the artist, the performer, at the center. Anything else after that is ancillary, frills. And I always stress that the more elements you have is the more, you know, opportunity for things to go wrong. It is more opportunity for things to not go as planned. And one of the problems I have with the competitions is that people don't often get a chance to rehearse properly. So, you know, you're trying something big and ambitious, and it's maybe for the first or second time, and it's not guaranteed to work out. So I think it's a bit of an assumption that is taking on a kind of a life of its own. I always take people back to Benjai appearing on the Soca Monarch stage in a pair of boxing shorts, looking like the last fighter standing. And for me, that was a very powerful image.
Dr. William, for instance, he was a great orator and he was a great presenter. He presented in a very effective way. He had no props to do it. So presentation is not props. Props could be a part of your presentation, but we pay emphasis on the props. If you come on stage without props, the perception is that you don't have any presentation. And that's wrong.
The idea of presence, stage presence, that's an intangible. It's one of those things that, people try to qualify and quantify times over. And, in the performance business is either you have it or you don't have it. And, something that you could develop your craft and whatnot. But I think presence has to do with sense of self, confidence, the ease with which you assume your stance on the stage and deliver what your thing is.
And then your melody had to suit your lyrics and suit the theme. Because when you state your calypso, we are looking for that theme as judges, because you've given us this name. So now you had to sing that calypso, and with each verse, you had to develop. You can't sing the same thing in each verse. We were looking for a development of your theme, verse by verse, and you had 4 verses. So that's how we used to judge.
They're judging music now and not melody. And they award more points for music than lyrics. So the focus is not so much on what you say, but on the music that you use. And I can't agree with that. I can't agree with that. I feel that melody is an important part of the music. So when you have a nice melody, you could sing that melody and you could go back to some of the old songs and the melodies. You may not remember the lyrics, but the melodies remain in your mind and you sing the melody. Sometimes it's soothing, it's exciting, and melody is very important. Sometimes the melody tells the story before the lyrics begin.
Music and musicality, it has taken a serious slide in the last, I would say, 15 or so years. If you think about songs like Sasaye, Drunk and Disorderly, you go back to that era when you could sing road marches. As a matter of fact, we had road marches that were road march for 3 and 4 years, like Matilda, right? Because they were so sweet and sing along and nice. However, the road marches of today, partly because we have a new genre of composers coming along who are what we call eater food in some genre, and they're not focused on developing musical structure. They're looking for hooks and chants. They're looking for hook lines. We have a classic case in this year, 2017, that steel bands are now using a song which is virtually a chant. Maximus Prime, hold them and work them, the HTC could burn down, we jamming still. It's virtually a chant, 3 chants back to back. A chant in the verse, a chant in the chorus, and a chant in the bridge. 10 or 15 years ago, steel bands wouldn't go near a song like that. They would look for more melody, more movement, more innovation, because the arranger wants to take a nice melody and treat with it and show you what he could do with it. This is a difficult job, I must say, to make that come alive in the context of a panorama. But then it fits the mode of what I'm saying, that the musicality in composing has fallen away seriously in the last few years, and I blame the computer for that. Because people can now loop all kinds of stuff, They don't have to create so much. They can loop and just add things on a bed and say, okay, this is my contribution. But people like the old Kitchener, for example, who had a musical background, played the tall bass and the guitar, had a deep musical background. When he sat to compose, it wasn't just a composition. He was working with nuances of music and trends and cadences and all kinds of fancy stuff, which he had in his repertoire. So his end product was things like B's in melody, pan in A minor, something of a superior musical quality. And that is, I think, is lacking in today's composers for the most part.
If an adjudicator is aware of Kitchener's training in classical music in general, and of course, Leston Paul's lament that music is supposed to convey emotion and to relate a story, and clearly they're not really doing that today. And obviously chants can't do that. What are the Calypsonians doing? And here I must place the onus not on Tuco, but on the Calypsonians. What are the Calypsonians doing to enhance their own musicianship, to improve the marketability of their product?
Well, Calypsonians are supposed to do their own homework in their own time. And if they don't, then there's maybe the forum that represents Calypso, like Tuco, is supposed to organize musical workshops to bring Calypsonians more au courant with musical trends and and ideologies in music and patterns, so that when they sit down to write, their product is of a higher standard. Because Calypsonians are lazy for the most part, and they just tend to follow each other. If a song is a hit this year, you can be sure next year there'll be 2 or 3 songs of very similar pattern. So they're not so deep in terms of their originality. So maybe Tuco needs to lead by organizing musical workshops to reactivate the music in the business.
And if you have a nice chord progression, not two chords, as we say. 1-5-1-5-1-4-5, 1-4-5. Something more melodious will occur to you, you know. And your melody needs to be more than a fifth apart, because it's only 5 notes. That is, it's too repetitious. And your chorus should be different from your verse. And in your chorus, there should be memorable lines, singable hook lines and things that people, when you hear it, you remember it. You're going out of the tent singing the hook line. So in the olden days, the hook line and the memorable phrases would be in your chorus, when the verse would tell you the bulk of your material, you know. So I think that it's up to people. But for me, if you have many different intervals, not only a third and a fourth and all of that, like one day that Natasha sang, it began at an octave. And then she came down. Because if you begin with an octave, what you do is you come back down. You don't begin with an octave and go up. You begin with an octave and you come back down and you fill in the intervals coming down.
When shortly I discovered the niceness of the marriage of the East Indian experience and the instruments of the East Indian expression, and he married that to the calypso as it was then, that was innovation. And it wasn't the first innovation, but it was another innovation. And this time he decided to give it a name. I think that was the error. Because if it was just calypso of today, it would just be calypso of today's, but this is the new rhythm in the calypso, an introduction to this instrument in the calypso, and make it, you know, and it remained calypso, but he called it soca. And then that too didn't even remain what he said soca was and how he identified the music and so on. Soca has gone now in a different direction. The music has lost its identity, and you know, anything is soca. Anybody from Trinidad who sings something, I want to call it soca, that is soca. That's where we reach. I mean, innovation is fine, but I mean, the music must have its identity.
Just from my experience and having judged various competitions, I can see there are times when the maths don't really add up necessarily to who the actual person that performed the best in the moment. And I remember being part of a panel once where it was stated in advance that should we need to, we could confer, arrive at, make a selection and then go do like another rounds of voting and determine a winner. And I mean, it may not be a popular approach, but I think sometimes it is a way of getting around the anomalies in this when it's just maths involved,
One judge might see that performance as the best, and the other judge will see it as the worst. So you have that kind of difference in opinion of a performance. So therefore, it cannot be a mathematical thing, not at all.
Adjudication is not a mathematical exercise at the end of the day. We just use maths and figures to arrive at, a reasonable target. Okay? It's a means to an end. It's not in itself. So that the maths may be wrong from time to time. Somebody may have a column wrongly added or something. You don't punish a judge for that. At the end of the day, it's a social exercise. It's dynamic. The maths is just a means to an end. But I agree that there should be a supervising kind of panel. At the end of judging, we should convene and review what we have done. We should be responsible for what we have done.
And I believe a lot of judges and even us as performers fall into the trap that, but I know that song, boy, that's a good song. Nobody can beat that. You know what I mean? But the performance, the competition is on the night, that performance, that moment.
You judge a performance in every art, whether it's classical or so. You judge the performance on that night. You may have sung that calypso really well the night before, and you come tonight and you have a little throat and something tough. A calypsonian has to come out, and he's an orator. He's actually speaking to the audience. So you have to come out and create a rapport right away. And you look people in the face and you talk to them. You move about the stage and you use your hands. And you have to be confident. And we have to see that you're confident. If you're nervous, we see it. If you're on stage and you look nervous, I don't know, it's just like transparent, immediately.
For me, this is a crucial point. The idea that the song itself, as written, as recorded, exists as an artifact in time and space. Right? There's a performance on that song, and you use that to assess the worth of the song or the value of the song or its viability going forward. So it's already crossed that hurdle. So it's assumed that in a competition of the best of Calypso, that everybody's song is on a certain level that would have afforded them to be there. So for me, what is important on the night is the performance. And as I say, it all boils down to that magic moment. And it could be somebody that you weren't expecting, the typical dark horse or what have you, or somebody who was there, but they just peaked on that moment. And that is the moment, and they claim the prize, they claim the crown. So I always encourage judges to look out for that, look out for the fact that the assumption is they're all good songs. We've heard them before, we've assessed them, that they've reached this far. So it really boils down to the performance on the night.
Pretender told me, he said in the first Independence Calypso competition, Sparrow, in his opinion, had the best song. But Bryna won the competition on the night. Bryna won the competition on the night because of the performance on the night. Bryna won, but he believed that Sparrow had the better song. So it's the judging is on the night, the performance on the night. That is what it is. So Wendell is absolutely correct in that statement.
Going through to give them a rating, and you write a comment based upon the score. This is an excellent score, so we will say excellent, and that would be it. You submit your score and your rating, and then we have the option to submit the score and rating. And we say that, it asks you the question, are you sure you want to submit the score? You say yes, and it gives you that message, and then you move on to the next contestant. So this is contestant Sharisa Ali, and it will go through that process until it has come to the end of all the contestants, and then it will give you that message. What the software does, what the digital adjudication does, is that it brings transparency inside of the process. It makes everything that the judges do accountable and open for everybody to see, so that you no longer need to fear that after it is therefore that marks have been given, then somehow or the other they will be changed in the back room. This software presents you or gives the artist an opportunity where it is that having performed your work, you can feel very confident that this is you're going to be adjudicated, and when you are adjudicated, nobody can change the mark after.
There's opportunity for prejudice and bias and all sorts of things. And of course, it's not a perfect scenario, it's not a perfect system. So I accept that it would be something that people would have a hard time dealing with. But as I said, just from my experience of having been in a situation where the add up the scores at the end of the day and everybody looks around in surprise and said, how did this happen?
And judges never confer about what mark they give. You did, and whatever mark you gave, that stayed. You didn't adjust marks or anything.
If it is therefore that you have contestants that are tied, then you use the scores that the contestants have obtained to be able to break the deadlock and able to advance them forward. Because part of the issue in terms of huddling is that it may become subjective, because upon what basis would one go forward or one stay back? It should be decided upon the basis that I won. If you look at the other side of it, in the context of when they're running a race, the seconds are actually milliseconds are what separates the winner from the loser. So in that context, there is no opportunity where it is that they could deliberate. It is your actual performance, whether it is your knee, your elbow, your toe, your dive, however it is, it happens. You are a judge, the winner, based upon your individual performance.
I'm not saying that you suddenly decide in that moment, let me look at this and rub off something and write in something else.
My thing on the tabulation now, you don't just add up the scores. You add the placings, because like in adding fractions, you add according to the common denominator. And in the case of a panel of judges, each judge is a fraction of that panel. In order to add fractions, we must find a common denominator. The common denominator in this case is how you place the people, because regardless of whether you are a high marker or a low marker, liberal or not, what type of marker you are, at the end of the day, you mark your score sheet is to determine first to last, what you call the ranking between first place and last place. The marks could distort the results. The judges, that system will produce a result that even the judges doesn't agree with. And you could delete the high and the low place and so on, and to come up with in addressing biases and so on.
What the software does not allow you to do is to say have remorse about the score that you would have given to the first contestant and then say, well, look, I want to change it because of the second contestant. So in other words, what that is speaking to is the quality of judging, the quality of understanding that the judge has in terms of how they score performance. So, how the software allows that to happen is that the development of a rubric, so that the rubric inside of there, part of the emphasis in the training is how the judges are to use the rubric, so that 5 is equated to good, 10 is equated to excellent, and the range in between, so that when you now give a score, you have a firm understanding how to do the maths then, or relate the maths to an actual performance, and that becomes scientific. So therefore, what the software allows that to happen is that the adjudication to become more scientific or more technical.
So from the point of view of the rubric is designed so that all the judges will be on the same page.
Part of the problem, which is that you give a comment and you say, well, all right, this performance is excellent, and then you give the person a 5. So it's like, there's a mismatch. And one of the things that you don't want to happen is that you don't want the artists themselves to be, have a experience dissonance in terms of the score. You want the artists to understand that, listen, when they get that score is the reality of their performance, and the comment in terms of what you have said is closer together, or if not one and the same. And the rubric helps perfectly inside of that context.
Tuco President Lutalo Masemba announced that we're going with the aggregate system this year because of cutbacks.
I think it's a financial decision.
Yes.
Yeah, because I was largely responsible for introducing the specialist system. You may not know this, but a song by Devon Seal called Fresh Air, and they responded immediately. I want one man judging my lyrics alone, no more. He looking for metaphor, stuff like that. Beautiful song.
The specialist system, to me, one, it doesn't hold any of the judges accountable for anything. It's difficult to see if you have an errant judge when you're using the specialist system. That's one. And two, Calypso being one unit, to break it down and separate it into different departments for different people to adjudicate, to me that is even more ridiculous.
Well, I do not understand the specialist system with so many people judging, because it is not possible. Everything is integrated. It is not possible to judge only the lyrics and only the melody and only the stage presentation, only this. Because the lyrics and the melody are wedded together, and the suitability of the melody to the lyrics is what makes it a really good presentation. So you can't separate the two, because I have heard people who come with a calypso, novices and so on, and the words not fit in properly and all of that. And then you're looking for the rhyme. Sometimes people rhyme every 2 lines, sometimes they rhyme in between the line. So if a man comes and he's rhyming in between the line or every other line or so, it's very clever. And you have to give him more marks for that. I can't separate them because everything is so integrated.
I'll address that with a scenario that I witnessed. I was looking at boxing, and Sugar Ray Leonard was ringside. And this fight was in about the 7th round. I'm not going to call the name of the boxers, I might get one wrong. One was Curry. And they asked Sugar, how you see the fight? And Sugar Ray said, well, boxer number 1 is ahead on all 7 at the end of all 7 rounds on all the cards. Clearly, it's a unanimous decision so far. However, he's going to lose the fight. Because he's faster than this boxer number 2. He's coming in and jabbing and going back out, which he's been doing for 6 rounds. But I noticed in round number 7, he's coming in and dropping his left hand and sticking around. And this guy, boxer number 2, has a good night right hand. He will put him to sleep. So said, so done. 1 round later, Starboy, who was ahead on all 7 rounds, on all cards, was on the ground fighting for his breath. Came in with a fancy movement and stuck around a little too long. And homeboy number 2 plugged him with a right hand and put him to sleep. I give you that scenario to say this: you can't judge what you don't know. Sugar Ray Leonard was sitting ringside minding his own business and observed the fight and saw this like a prophet. This man is ahead on all 7, after all 7 rounds, on all cards, but he's going to lose. And within 1 round, it came to pass. Because he saw something that was critical. Because he's been there, done that. He was a former welterweight champion. He faced the best in Roberto Duran, Tommy Hearns, etc. He knew what he was talking about. So I believe in the specialist system. If you're trained in music, judge the musical aspect of a performance. If you're a lyricist, you're a Gordon Roller, people of that ilk, you're a writer, you're a journalist, Keith Smith, judge the lyrical aspect of the thing. You have no responsibility for the entire product. You don't even know who's sitting next to you and what they're judging. You are focused on your aspect of it. Yes, you're hearing everything, but everything is not your business. You go to a doctor, an eye doctor, he doesn't test your heart, your lungs, your liver, your spleen, or your kidneys. His business is your eyes. Okay? So I believe in the specialist system to a large extent. It takes the load off of people who are not necessarily competent in specific areas.
So now, after you raised that telling point about Sugar Ray, my director asked me, she points out to me, she said, do I eat a macaroni pie by eating the egg, then the pasta, and then the cheese? Or is it one experience of eating a macaroni pie?
Yes, it's one experience of eating a macaroni pie, but if you are judging... Yeah, I'm not sure that metaphor is very fair, but yes, everything comes together in one montage, in one melee. But a trained eye, a trained ear is able to extricate the part that is relevant, the part that they connect with, the part that they're trained in. All right? I give you the metaphor of the doctor. An eye doctor, you go to fix your glasses, he doesn't check your heart, lungs, liver, spleen, that's not his business. But he looks at your whole body. But he specializes in eyes.
Yes, but as any diabetic would tell you, if something is wrong in your pancreas, it shows up in your...
Shut up in your eyes. I hear you. So all things are relative, and I'm not denying that.
So
yes.
We're saying the holistic approach is probably...
Yeah, and it's not impossible that you could judge everything. I'm not saying this is impossible. I'm saying it is more difficult. It's easier for you to judge in the area where you are a specialist, area where you've trained and you experience whatever, like Sugar Ray did with the boxing thing. Okay, but it's not impossible that one person can sit and judge lyrics, melody, presentation, rendition. One person can do it all. But I'm saying it's a little easier on the judge if you give them an area in which they are already qualified and specialized.
You have more judges to pay. So that is and apart from not making sense, you're in a position now where you have to spend more money and you're receiving less. So it doesn't make sense. It's not really an aggregate system. We say aggregate system for convenience, but the aggregate is just a method of tabulating the marks because the judges judge the same way. The specialist is a system, but aggregate is not a system as such. You're judging, but a different way of judging. Instead of judging melody and lyrics and so on separately, right? You have one judge judging the whole Calypso and awarding marks for the whole Calypso.
But don't be a competitor and be a Tuku official or judge at the same time. It creates an environment or an atmosphere of a semblance of collusion and compromise.
You should never have anybody, even connected, not even your family, your son, your daughter, should be performing if you are judging. They should find people who are totally apart from them, who love the culture, who are musicians, who could understand and so on. And those are the people who judge, and they have nothing to do with the association whatsoever.
If you're on the adjudication committee, again, there should be like separation of powers, as we call it, separation of church and state. There should be a definite separation of those two responsibilities.
So you have to keep a list that you look at all the time, from night to night. You add in the top 5 or 6 that you had every night, because at the end of the day, that is the exercise you have to do. And you have to be very fair, and you have to be thinking and keeping that standard. You have to keep the standard in your head all the time.
You have to suspend your biases. You have to suspend your disbelief. Like any person involved in a show, you have to forget that you're sitting in a big, crowded place. The bench might be hard or whatever. You might be sitting there for hours. You need to be able to get into a zen spot and zone into this thing and just take it in. And that's tough.
An adjudicator has to point out where your good points were and what your failings were and what you need to do to come better if you come in the next stage. That's what adjudicators do. So you can't write something, that is very damning and bring it down. You have to give the person credit for getting on stage anyway and bringing a song and singing it. Because you can't get on stage and sing a song. So you have to give him credit for that. And then you say, well, this was your weakness, or you didn't do this, or your diction wasn't clear and we didn't hear your points. And you tell him so that he could improve. It is to help him improve. Adjudication is to help somebody improve. That's what it is.
To all those adjudicators out there, more power to you. And it's a lot of power, so use it well and, take all those things on board.